Hi, Ted Morsey here, making a quick video, mainly for my MFA students, MFA in writing students, but others can, listen to. So I've been talking to some of you individually about a couple of different issues, and they're related issues. But because it's so common to have these conversations, I thought it'd be a good idea to maybe make a video and just put it out there in the world. And one of the issues has to do with sequencing. So as we are trying to complete a manuscript and we're trying to bring together, say, a bunch of poems into a collection of poems, or a bunch of short stories into a collection of stories, or essays into a collection of essays, etc. But even if you're doing a novel, writing a novel, ultimately you have to look at how to put those pieces together. Maybe you're just going to go straight chronology from point A to point Z, and that's fine. Most novelists, most of the time, will move back and forth in time, won't necessarily write the sections in chronological order, and so ultimately they'll have to kind of put them together in some way, and so it applies to them as well. But a lot of writers who haven't done this sort of thing before will really stress out about that final sequence. What order should the poems be in? What order should the stories be in, the essays, and so on, and try to find just that perfect combination to make the collection as good as it can be, right? Have as much emotional impact, be as page-turning, whatever you want to say. But here's the thing. There is no right answer. Every sequence that you come up with has some pluses. You'll have some advantages in terms of impact if you put these in this order, etc., etc. But every choice you make that has pluses also has some drawbacks. Every decision you make where you have some gains in terms of, again, emotional impact, being a more intriguing kind of narrative or whatever that you're developing, etc., has drawbacks also. And it's a never-ending sort of battle. There's no way to find the perfect sequence. And so to search for that, to think, well, it must be out there, and if I just think hard enough, try hard enough, play with it long enough, voila, I'll come up with this perfect combination of poems or stories or essays or whatever it is. That'll be it. And then, I'll find a publisher and readers will love it, and, et cetera, et cetera. But again, there's no right answer. I recommend, rather, that you do whatever you want to do for your own sake. What do you think makes the best sense? What do you think has the most impact? What do you like, right? And you can rest assured that others will like it too, right? Now, related to that, and I think part of the thinking and the anxiety is talking about the reader. How will the reader react to this combination versus that combination? How can I hook the reader so that they're really into this and they'll just devour this, whatever it is, right? The reader is a mythological creature. There is no the reader. There are readers, hopefully, but each of them is going to react to the whatever it is, the collection, the book, the novel, in their own way, right? Everyone is bringing kind of their own perceptions, their own experiences, their own point of view to the reading situation, and so they're going to react however they're going to react to it, right? So this idea that there's this sort of idealized reader that we can write for, doesn't really work, because again, every reader is idiosyncratic and they vary from day to day to day, from minute to minute to minute, right? If you're doing certain kinds of writing, if you're writing YA fiction, for example, if you're targeting a younger audience, then yeah, you obviously want to be mindful of a sort of generic young adult or a generic middle schooler or whatever it might be. But even still, you can't say for sure how this middle schooler might react versus that one. right? But obviously those will impact your vocabulary choices and sentence structure and things like that. But generally speaking, if you're writing for adults, you really should only have an audience of one, and that's you. How do you want the text to be? How do you want the poems to be, the stories, the novel, etc.? What makes sense to you? What do you find pleasing? And so on. Again, if you're writing in certain genres, if you're writing a Western or a romance or maybe fantasy, maybe the readers that you're targeting have certain expectations. They're going to be these elements, right? And so, yeah, you'll think about that, and you'll want to include, the sort of tropes of romance in your romance novel, that kind of thing. But again, if you're targeting just sort of the general adult reader, then there's really no way to know how they're going to react to the text. The other thing to keep in mind too is that once the book is out of your hands, you have no control over how the reader handles the material. If it's a collection of poems, for example, probably a lot of readers, most readers, are not going to start with the first poem and read sequentially to the end of the collection, right? They're going to flip through, they're going to look at some of the titles or some of the structures of the poems, and maybe look at the table of contents, and maybe a title or two will jump out at them, or again, as they flip through, maybe a poem or two might look particularly interesting the way it's presented on the page, so they'll read those first. Again, short story collections. I don't know that I've ever picked up a short story collection and read it from page 1 to page 200 or whatever it is in sequence. Usually I kind of jump around. A particular story has caught my attention. Maybe it's the reason I bought or checked out the collection in itself. There's this one story, this one piece that I want to read for sure, so I'll read that one. Maybe it's the third story in the collection. Maybe it's the 8th story, whatever. And then after I read that, then maybe I'll go back and read some more, et cetera, right? Now, if it's a novel, generally speaking, people do read novels from page 1 to page 200 or 300 or 650 or whatever it might be. So yeah, that makes sense that they're going to read in order. But again, if it's a collection of poems, collection of stories, collection of essays, readers will be very capricious about how they read that work. And again, they may read one piece or one or two pieces today. They may set that book aside, come back to it next week, read a little bit more, come back to it next year, 5 years from now, whatever, right? So the sequence that you come up with painstakingly, losing sleep over, a lot of readers aren't even going to bother to read the material in that sequence anyway, right? Now, if you submit your manuscript to an agent or a publisher, small press publisher or whatever, and so you get involved with working with an agent or an editor, they may have some ideas about the sequence of the poems, the sequence of the stories, the arrangement of the novel, chapters, sections, whatever, and that's where writers can get into some pretty heated debates with their editors and agents and so on, lock horns over some stuff. So that may happen down the road. So you may have to revisit the sequence, the chronology of things, because someone else finds some fault with it or thinks they have a better way of doing it. So then you have to kind of sort all that out, right? But generally speaking, at this point, when you are just creating the manuscript yourself for your own artistic reasons, don't lose any sleep over it, because there is no right answer, right? And you may think, well, if I put these things together in a particular combination, it's going to emphasize this particular theme, it's going to get across some particular idea. Great, it's great to have those plans. But again, once it gets out into the world, people are going to read it, again, hopefully, and they're going to see things in it that you didn't see, that you didn't anticipate. They're bringing their own, like I said, their own perceptions, their own point of view, and so they'll see things that you, as the author, don't even see, and they'll start to make sense of it, make meaning that you had no intention of making whatsoever. There's just no way around it. So again, bottom line here is obviously put thought into it, enjoy the process. It's just another creative aspect of what you're doing. Come up with something that you find enjoyable, realizing that there's no perfect solution. For every gain, there's going to be a loss of some sort, and just go with it. Once it gets out into the world, once you start trying to get it published, then maybe some of these other issues will have to be revisited. But for now, don't stress about it. Have a good time, and that's that.